I'm Brent Leary.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm Brent Leary.
I'm Paul Greenberg.
Yeah, we are the CRM Playaz. It was kind of.
I have no idea who I am anymore. I literally, my attention's.
You know what? We're looking a little out of sync.
I literally, when I said I was Paul Greenberg, really?
You are pretty out of sync.
No, what? How? Look fine on my end, I have to say.
Maybe I'm the one out of sync. I don't know. It looks like I'm.
I'll tell you what. How about if I want to? I'll log off and we'll.
Okay, you log off. I'll just I'll hang out.
Okay. Hold on.
And maybe if there's anybody out there, let us know. You know what's going on. If you're seeing something, maybe I'm the one out of sync. Maybe I should have listened to more Justin Timberlake back in the 90s or something. I don't know. Anyway, we are the CRM Playaz, and shortly, Mr. Paul Greenberg will be joining me because it is Thursday. It's that Thursday afternoon. Well, at least here in the East Coast. So yeah, we're gonna do this, and I see him. I'm gonna bring him back right now. Hello. I'm starting to. Now I'm not hearing you at all.
Now you're out of sync.
Now, okay, so I'm gonna.
Really,
I'm
gonna try. You fine, and I was Mike. Now.
Yeah, I'm hearing you fine now, but
I'll just hang out. Oh wait, I can't. You'll have to. I'll end up.
I think we're okay. I think
you're okay. Am I out of sync still?
I think you're okay now.
Okay. Wow.
Maybe that was a LinkedIn thing.
All right.
We'll blame it on them. I don't care. Anyway.
Yeah,
it's good to be back.
Let's blame it. Yeah. Shame on you, LinkedIn.
Especially after we've been so tight these last 8 months.
Look at this. Technical issues.
Anyway, good to be here again for the.
We have had no issues. And then just today, of all days.
Maybe it's just one of those days. It's a blur's day. Maybe it's a blur's day for LinkedIn.
10,213,442nd.
We're back. Anyway, so we do have
I think it's blur's day for life.
It might be.
It's blur's day for life, yeah.
We got a full 53 minutes now. Technical difficulties aside. We do have a guest. We're going to bring him on in a little while. But before we go and bring that guest to the forefront here, you have a little bit of a BYOB update, right?
Yeah, actually, it's cool. So first, you think we should go with the sizzle before I talk about the steak, or what?
You know what? I'm gonna pop this up.
I think we're out of sync.
We're still a bit of a delayed. I think are you talking about me? Probably talking about me more so than you. I don't know what's going on. Maybe I need to run the clip and then we'll see what happens after that. Want to do that?
Okay. All right, so yeah, let me. I'll announce it because there seems to be a gap between me talking and then you hearing me. So the bands, all the bands were asked to do promos for their performance, and we have the first one, and we want to show it to you all. It's fantastic. It's Salesforce's band, the Velocitors, who call themselves the Velocitors, a Salesforce band. And here we have it, the Velocitors.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are here to celebrate Memphis Soul Stack Records, the capital of Soulville, USA, the home to the dynamic duo, the soaked until sweat, the two and only Sam and Dave. The big O, the king of soul, Mr. Otis Redding, and the prolific, terrific, and truly beatific Mr. Eddie Floyd. So without further ado, full of gratitude, we present to you the Velocitors, the Salesforce Band.
That was great. I mean, that's a hard
That
one.
was amazing. Doesn't that guy with the sunglasses look like?
I think
the
we're
guy with
still
the
having.
sunglasses looks like we really do have that gap, by the way.
Yeah, there's a bit of
You're like,
a serious lag, and
Really big one this time.
And Sven says he's talking about you and not me. So I don't know what's going on. Maybe there's a little gremlin.
Well, I don't know. I don't know where it's coming from, but I'll tell you what. Let me. I'll go out again. You keep talking, and we'll see what happens.
All right, we'll try that. Matter of fact, I am. No, what's going on here? Trying to do something here. Anyway, yeah, this is like I don't know. Maybe there's something big going on LinkedIn, and maybe something is stressing the system or something. But we hope that it'll get fixed, and we'll be able to get back to what we usually do. Let's see. Yep. Okay, so even our guest Erik Arnold, serious lag with Paul. So hopefully we'll get that going. And you know what? Since he's already jumped into the fray here, and we're waiting for Mr. Paul Greenberg, I'm just going to go ahead and introduce our guest. We're going to take things a little out of the usual order of things, but Erik Arnold, I want to make sure I get your title right. You are the CTO for Microsoft Tech for Social Impact. Thank you for joining us, man.
I am so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
And I'm actually glad because you're in sync. I mean, this is great. We're already ahead of the game.
Baby steps.
Hey, thanks for making time to talk with us today. Because I don't know if Paul had a chance to fill you in or not, but we're planning on doing this CRM Playaz thing around social impact. The companies kind of putting a spotlight on the vendors in the industry that are doing some good work, and so what you guys just announced definitely fits that space. But the only
thing that Paul filled me in on is don't be a Patriots fan.
That's so that is definitely the right way to proceed for this show. And so I don't even have to ask what your favorite team is, being that you're wearing a Seahawks. I'm guessing it's not an Atlanta Hawks, so I'm guessing it is a Seattle Seahawks.
Yeah, I had to go with the geekiest Seahawks shirt I could find. Yep.
Well, I am, that stands for Los Angeles Rams there. So you kind of guess where I'm going. But you know what?
Yep. You got our number if it helps.
No, it doesn't feel like it's helping right now. But I have respect. I actually, don't tell my fellow Rams fans this, but I kind of like Russell Wilson. So I kind of find it hard to root against.
Yeah. Turns out he's good.
All right, let's see who else. If Paul Greenberg's connection is good,
how's it working now?
Yes. There you go.
Yes.
Yeah. You know what I ended up doing? I rebooted. Literally.
That's always the solution.
That's what helped us. What I told you to do.
Like back in the 1800s or whatever, maybe it was that far back. They had those tonic salesmen that would go around and they would. Everything, whatever your ill was, it was that one tonic that could fix it.
Yeah.
So restart and reboot is that kind.
That's right.
Man.
Yeah, it's been that way since trash 80s, right? Only it took like half an hour back in those days.
Absolutely. So all right, we're here, and Erik is here. We jumped out of sync because we were out of sync. So now we're all in sync. I feel like Justin Timberlake now.
I was just going to say that. I was just like, this is such a boy band moment.
Oh my God. Okay. Let's move forward. Let's press on now.
So is that what graduates it from CRM Playaz to CRM Playaz?
No. Boy band? No. God, no. God, no. Jesus Christ, no. That would be the worst. Oh my God, that graduates us to CRM players with the ERS.
ERZ.
Yeah, we get the modus.
More barbershop quartet kind of approach.
Wow.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Exactly.
Even the barbershop quartet saying, "Nah, man, that's not right."
No, that's right. Come on, man. Don't do that to us. So I missed your introduction. So
I literally had just introduced him, and I already got the most important question out of the way. Although his T-shirt kind of said it all. So
well, yeah.
And I worry about it too much.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a tricky decision whether to go with the proper Microsoft swag or the Seahawks colors. So went for the Seahawks.
Wow.
There's nothing
I
wrong
never
with
saw
that.
that shirt either. That's a hell of a shirt.
Right? Yeah.
Of course,
Yeah.
we're coming from a Microsoft dude.
I know. That's what I was thinking. That's
There's probably some people.
of
There's probably people out in watching this saying, "What the hell is C:"
Yeah.
right. Exactly. Exactly.
Go learn
the
DOS.
DOS version.
Yeah.
Wait, I got another question. Speaking of
Hebrew.
foreign languages, what does that mean? Does anybody?
Shalom. On the right is shalom, and oh God, I can't. I can't make it. I can't.
Once again, Sven is stumped.
Barim, but it says shalom. It should say Ali. I assume it's Aleichem, but it doesn't actually. The Hebrew font looks kind of weird, but I'm assuming it's Shalom Aleichem.
Wow. All right, Sven,
definitely
you're gonna have
shalom.
to. Sven, what were you saying? Just let us know.
He was definitely saying shalom.
Shalom.
That part is another language. It's every time a new
every
language
week. Now Rolf is gonna come in. Rolf Corbs will come in. Oh, now here's one I can read. Oh, that's what it says. Hello, friends.
There you go.
Good old Donnie, always there when we need him.
Perfect.
All right. Now that we got all the kinks rocked, and now I feel like the kinks. Should we go dancing
kinks.
with the kinks now?
That's right. Lola, hello,
I love those. What Davies? One of Ray Davies or somebody like that?
Ray Davies.
Ray Davies. Yeah.
Ray Davies. Star.
And Eric, you thought you were going to come here to talk about serious stuff, and
Oh no, Paul gave me fair warning.
Did you see that? Did you see that promo though? That was a great promo.
That is a hard act to follow, is what that was.
Right. I know. Well, you should be. I guess in a way, you should be glad Microsoft's not actually in the competition then. But
yeah. Well, after that, I gotta have a conversation internally. Clearly.
There will be another next year. So be ready. Be ready, Eric. You can be the leader of the band.
Hey, I played trombone in high school, so does that count?
You did? Yeah, it counts.
I did. Yeah,
I played trumpet. So
I forget which band it is, but one of the band members was the sax player on Saturday Night Live for years. So we don't know who though.
Really?
The CMO
that's a ringer.
actually no. You know who the real ringer is? It's actually the CMO of one of the bands who happens to be one of your bigger partners bands, which is Episerver, right? And the CMO of Episerver is a former mezzo-soprano professional opera singer who sang at Carnegie Hall, and she is the vocalist for their band.
There you go.
That's what I mean. Not going to beat that
ringer.
No.
That's
being able to
ringer.
play Tila on a trombone is not going to beat that.
I can only drink this stuff. I couldn't play it. So let's start with your big announcement. No, actually, let's not. I want to start somewhere else first. Because look, I've been talking now for about a year and a half, maybe 2 years almost.
Yeah.
And the thing I've always found phenomenal about what you're doing is the actual scope of the philanthropic effort that Microsoft's making is just staggering. I mean, it's staggering, and it's, in the broader sense of the term, insanely diverse, right? Meaning there's so many different aspects to it, from grants and funding to free technology to actually use of technology to just straight out, good deeds and good works. I mean, it's just massive. Can you just kind of fill people in on kind of some more detail on the scope? Because I really think people need to hear this.
Yeah. I mean, you're going to get me a little bit on a soapbox about this, and eventually we'll bring it back down around CRM. But so I sit on a team called Tech for Social Impact, which is Microsoft Philanthropies. Microsoft Philanthropies is part of Microsoft Corp. We're not a separate entity. We're not affiliated with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So we have a very robust corporate philanthropies program. And in fact, I hesitate sometimes even to call it corporate philanthropies because we are so far beyond kind of traditional CSR. And at Microsoft, we believe we have a shared responsibility to ensure that the technology we build, we invest in, benefits everybody on the planet. We don't leave anybody behind. And we do that really around, four societal pillars for trust and fundamental rights, inclusive economic growth, and sustainability. We wrap all that with open data sovereignty, privacy, security. It's great. But we do it at such a scale, and we don't talk about that scale a lot. We try to be pretty humble about it. So in Philanthropies itself, we have a few different missions. We focus on digital inclusion, making sure that underserved have access to digital technology. We focus on humanitarian partnerships and working with organizations that are working with humanitarian aid organizations. We have over 65 million people that are displaced for a variety of reasons, either conflict or climate refugees. We invest in AI for good, so using our AI technologies to invest in specific social impact focus areas. Racial equity, we are making a big investment in around racial equity in the United States. And then this team where I sit, which is Tech for Social Impact, which focuses on working directly with the nonprofit sector and the United Nations, both to create net new solutions that solve for some of the biggest needs that nonprofits have from a technology perspective. And also, how do we price that ethically? How do we build a sustainable business engine inside Microsoft that allows us to scale the amount of work we do? So to give you some idea of the scale at which Microsoft operates, this past fiscal year, we provided over 1.9 billion in donated or discounted software products and services to over 243,000 nonprofits around the world. On top of that, our employees donated and we matched an additional $221 million. We invest through our AI for Good programs, AI for Health. There's a lot of different good partnerships there. We partner with the WHO on data platforms for disease research around COVID. We work together with LinkedIn and GitHub to give access to 25 million job seekers around the world. We have a goal to hit 25 million, and in just a few months, we've already served 10 million of that, so we're well on our way there. We work on expanding broadband access and invest in things like our Airband initiative and are bringing broadband to over 40 million underserved people globally, including in the US. We focus AI technology around accessibility, so the 1 billion people that have disabilities in the world can interact with digital technology and have economic opportunities. Meanwhile, the planet is suffering, and so we've set some pretty ambitious goals for ourselves around being carbon negative, zero waste, water positive by 2030, investing in AI for Earth programs, working with some of the largest conservation organizations on the planet, and have committed to $1 billion climate innovation fund to accelerate innovation for digital conservation solutions. And then finally, trust, right? We can't do this, this sector runs on trust. We can't do this if we're not also focusing on the privacy and security of the data around some of the most vulnerable population on the planet, and do that together with UN agencies and humanitarian aid organizations. GDPR, that's table stakes. We're talking much deeper kind of, how do we handle being able to deliver services to refugees in refugee camps? How do we work with people that are fleeing countries and seeking asylum in new countries? So there's quite a lot we do. It's a little bit overwhelming sometimes to think of the different ways that we engage around that. My own humble area in Tech for Social Impact, we focus on trying to bring all of that together. So first of all, help tell that story, but also make all of these solutions affordable for the nonprofit sector. So in a cloud economy, it costs a little bit to run all of these the kinds of services in the cloud. And so how do we price that ethically so that we have enough that pay for the innovation, our grants, my salary, but do that in a way that is revenue neutral, so that we can reinvest and scale the number of nonprofits we work with, the programs that we have, without running afoul of our shareholders, right? If we are running too far into the red, we're a private business, and we can't go as deep as we maybe all want us to go. We need to do this in a way that's sustainable. And so I think we've created a unique model in Microsoft that allows us to really massively scale and really try to move the needle across some of the sustainable development goals.
So this AI for Good falls under your aegis, right?
AI for Good sits within Brad Smith's organization. It's not in Tech for Social Impact. So we partner very closely with those AI teams, and they work then directly with the nonprofits that they're serving.
I mean, the thing, given the scope of what you just identified, which was pretty, I mean, it's almost literally unimaginable. It's that big. I also noticed that you address, I mean, partly in what you said, but also in what the AI for Good program does. You address areas that I've never seen addressed anywhere else. Like you have in the AI for, again, I'm speaking of the AI for Good just because that happens to be on my brain at the moment. But you have AI for cultural heritage, which, I mean, I've never seen anybody, first of all, I've never seen anybody even use the words AI and cultural heritage in the same sentence. But second, I've never seen anybody think of good in that way. Most of the stuff you see in here is what you would expect, right? Which is not, I'm not denigrating that. It's amazing. But this is an area that just doesn't get addressed other than by a few smaller organizations here and there. I mean, first of all, I guess, what was the thinking that even led you to address it in general? And secondly, how does AI for cultural heritage, but also the rest of the organization, your organization, address that too?
Yeah, I mean, if you think about, so first of all, I love it. I'm a trained historian, maybe a lapsed historian at this point. But if you think about how important it is as a society to learn from history, to be able to continue to progress and advance, and maybe not make some of the same mistakes that we've made in the past. And the shift of new generations and the utilization of new technologies, we're consuming information more and more digitally. And so how can we use technology to create better experiences for people to learn about their own cultures, to learn about other cultures, to bring all of that, not only into museums and new kinds of experiences that way, but also into the classroom, and help people really understand themselves in the context of a broader world. We couple all of this with an Office of Responsible AI. So part of this is, we're not just thinking about what are the cool ways that we can use artificial intelligence, but also how do we do this in an ethical way? How do we, do this in a way where we try to really focus on the basic principles around safety and privacy and security, inclusiveness, transparency, accountability, all the scary things about utilization of AI. We have to think about when we do something, even something seemingly benign as AI for cultural heritage. We need to apply all of those principles to that as well.
Well, actually, I think the comprehensive kind of approach is really great. But did it also kind of evolve? Because I remember this is kind of like 2 or 3 years ago. there was that bot that Microsoft put together that was kind of like an AI bot that
I'm
listened.
glad you're not talking about Clippy.
Not Clippy, not that far back. The one that kind of got hijacked by the folks on Twitter, and it kind of self-learned itself to be spewing hatred.
Yeah, it became fascist.
Yeah. So how did that experience help to kind of formulate the what's going on today?
Yeah, great example, right? On how it is so easy and so inexpensive these days to use advanced technology, and even in the most well-meaning ways, the technology itself can go directions that you might not predict. And so how do we think about some of that stuff, and how do we build some of that stuff in? So yeah, the Office of Responsible AI got created after that incident, not necessarily as a direct result, but we're certainly thinking about that. And now look at the world we're in today with you can pretty inexpensively create deep fakes and mimic faces, mimic voices, for all kinds of purposes. And you can use facial recognition in ways that aren't necessarily original intent. And so we pay a lot of attention to that. And as a provider, and as an organization that works to create this kind of innovative technology, we want to build in the right controls and the right ethics into it as we work with our partners that are then delivering finished solutions into specific use cases.
Listen, one parenthetical thing before next question. Just for those who don't know this, Clippy is now in a boy band. I just want you to know.
Whatever happened to Microsoft Bob? Did he go change his name to something else?
He's the other member of the boy band. Right.
Cashed out his stock, retired.
That's right. So
when I left the nonprofit, so I worked in nonprofit for about 8 years before joining Microsoft, and when I left nonprofit, my team gave me a sad Clippy T-shirt. So I've got Clippy.
Oh my God. What did you do with it? You actually still have it, huh?
Oh yeah, that was one of the choices for this morning. Believe me.
Wow.
Oh my God.
I think you made the right pick, man.
Yes, you did. Without any
And that's coming from a Rams fan.
I will always bet on Russell Wilson. So there you go.
No, I'm a fan.
I had one other kind of question, and because AI is becoming such foundational across all kinds of perspectives, but we're not there yet, but we know where everything is going. And I remember this is probably like 4 or 5 months ago, and tell me if this is kind of out of your purview or not, but there was the when the kind of the social protests picked up, and some of the technologies that some of the tech firms were using or allowing, like the police to use from a facial recognition perspective. There was a lot of pushback, and eventually, a number of companies said, "Hey, we need to step back from letting this technology get out because it's not as accurate as it needs to be in order for certain use cases to exist."
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, and I'll stay away a bit from kind of what are the business decisions that Microsoft has to make around some of these things, because we do consider, again, the ethical use of AI and some of the business decisions we have to make as a company. What I will talk about is, and this isn't unique to Microsoft, but it is fascinating to me, the voice that employees have in companies like Microsoft and Amazon and Google and others in influencing how companies like Microsoft and others engage. And as AI becomes democratized and easier to incorporate into solutions, particularly low-code, no-code solutions like Power Virtual Agent and others, right? You need to think about how you're engaging and what kind of company you want to be with, and how you want that company to be responsible to society where they work. And that's been really interesting for me as more and more, as social is much more a part of the everyday life of everybody on the planet. It is amplifying the voices that we as individuals have, either in our private lives or in our business lives.
All right. So from that, how do you?
From there, I got to pivot to now let's talk about account and contact and household and.
We'll get there. Yeah, right. That's right. Believe me, one thing about the CRM Playaz you don't have to worry about is we don't always talk about CRM. In fact, we kind of hardly ever talk about CRM.
But if you can spell CRM for us, that's cool.
That would be right.
Hey, I got exciting stuff to say about product announcements.
Right.
Talk about that when we're ready.
Do we want to step into that now? Or?
Not quite yet. One more question.
Because I have a visual queued up, Justin.
Okay, be ready. Hold it. Hold that visual.
I hope it's not from my Facebook feed.
No, not that visual, man. No, let's stay away from that one.
All right.
That was, I think Facebook actually took it down this morning. So there's the other side of the philanthropic, which is, of course, just the straight out giving, right? This give grants, donations, et cetera, et cetera. How does what you're doing relate with that part? I'm not sure how Microsoft affects the grant and donation side of their work. Yeah, it's a great question, and the way I think about it, particularly with my mixed background of both public and private sector experience, for years, nonprofits have one of the biggest, easiest measures for nonprofit success is overhead rate, the amount of money you use donated to a nonprofit that goes to the administration and operation of that nonprofit versus the amount of money that goes towards program. And it was used as a proxy for how effective that nonprofit could be delivering mission. And if you think about it, as you invest your own retirement savings and income, you don't want to find those organizations that invest the least in themselves, that invest the least in R&D, that invest the least in having efficient systems. You want organizations that are striking the right balance between the innovative solutions that they're driving for customers and making sure that they're investing in R&D and looking ahead and driving efficient finances and compliance and HR, legal, and all the rest of it. Nonprofits, at the end of the day, they're also businesses. They have to invest in themselves. And if they don't have the money to invest in digital technology, they will get left behind. And so overhead rate has been this real bugaboo. And thinking about how do you make this transition from thinking less about overhead and more about impact as the measure, and how do you measure that impact is a big reason why we're making the investments we're making as Microsoft. From a giving perspective, now, flipping that from, the mechanics and architecture of how we think about building systems and now into cash donations. The most valuable money any nonprofit can get is unrestricted funding. Many grants, many ways that you can give to nonprofits are tied to specific needs and specific purposes. That means the nonprofit, by compliance rules, has to use that money for that purpose. If they get an unrestricted dollar, that unrestricted dollar can be used in many different ways. So an example, for an organization that is highly grant driven, that maybe runs with a lot of grants from private foundations, from governments, that might be working on a single intervention around, say, malaria control. Each one of those grants may have different data requirements. They may be generating different data around household surveys, around disease burden, around interventions. When the grants are done, it doesn't provide for the money to aggregate that data and tell that impact story across the individual grants. And so often the nonprofits are left with all these different data silos that then it becomes very difficult for them to aggregate. And so unrestricted funding, or funding specifically for technology, really helps organizations and stitch that together. That drives efficacy, that drives more impactful mission. And so from a grant perspective at Microsoft,
Corporations, we're never going to take the place of private foundations. We operate differently, but we're giving more and more. And we give in a couple different ways. One is at Microsoft, we have a very, very healthy employee giving program. We have over 75% participation across the company.
Wow.
In cash giving, all up. And Microsoft matches 100% of that for US-based employees. That accounts for about 220 million of the cash donations that we made last year.
Holy cow, that's amazing.
When we give that way, that's that magic unrestricted funding. Like when an employee, donates and Microsoft matches, often that just goes straight to unrestricted funding and unlocks quite a bit for those nonprofits.
So there's no like cap. I mean, so if an employee gives, just pulling out $100,000, Microsoft will match that.
We match it. We do have a limit. We match it up to a limit, and it's a high limit.
Okay.
That's amazing.
Okay. that's a
showstopper. So all right. So I mean, that again, sometimes I think, just generally, it's always hard to fathom the scope that Microsoft kind of works at all over the place. Really, it's just so big. I mean,
yeah, for us too. I mean, and I would say this is the whole reason why Microsoft Philanthropies and Tech for Social Impact exists. We operated for over 30 years with that kind of philanthropic giving as part of our DNA. Actually being able to focus it and harness it and figure out how do we take this and use it as a fulcrum that we can really leverage and drive and move the needle on SDGs. That's the whole reason Philanthropies exists within the company. And Tech for Social Impact, now how do we take that and really focus on that digital mission? How do we provide the digital skilling? How do we help organizations with digital enablement? Because I'll tell you, it's, the technology part, that's often the easiest part of a CRM project or an ERP project, right? It's the change management. That's the hard part. Nonprofits will beat you up all day long on licensing and pricing, but often don't have the funds and organization dollars internally to mobilize around an enterprise scale project. And so it takes longer to implement, is often more expensive to implement. And so how do we work with partners? How do we provide services on top of the technology that we provide that help guarantee, better adoption, successful projects?
When you think about people do not have access to the latest, greatest technology, fall further and further behind. And so it's like, if you didn't have an email account until 2010, chances are you're not going to know much about, if you didn't have a laptop because you couldn't afford it. So when I think of this whole tech for social impact, I think about the folks who have been underrepresented and have limited access to all the kind of things that we all talk about and you are delivering, from How do you guys, what role does that perspective play into some of the things that you're doing?
Yeah, and so we've got some really key Microsoft Philanthropy programs there around, how do we work with schools? How do we work to increase access to broadband? How do we work with cities and communities that have been particularly hard hit by this digital revolution? To provide investment in those communities, to encourage innovation, to encourage opportunities for people to participate in a digital economy. To do that, again, it's not about the tech. It's about policy. It's about skills. It's about investment in the community. It's about working with government. It's about working in that partnership with civil society. That's complex, right? And it's not something that a Microsoft can do alone, but boy, can we be a partner. And with the brand that Microsoft has and the scale at which we work, we have a certain gravitational pull that helps us bring people to the table to have more meaningful conversations that we hope will drive more action. But a lot of the programs that we focus on those that are underserved, right? Who are the people? Where are those people that need the most? typically in the global south or in underserved communities in the United States, rural communities that don't yet have broadband, or communities that, manufacturing communities that have been really hit with a decrease in manufacturing. How do we encourage investment in those communities to create entrepreneurial opportunities for new digital jobs? And in the global south, we're doing things like investing in a customer success team that's based out of Nairobi, Kenya, that will be working with organizations that are delivering digital solutions in sub-Saharan Africa. When I worked in the sector, my joke was I got more bars on my mobile phone in the middle of the Masai Mara in Kenya than I did in downtown Seattle. And working with the Masai, they work with mobile devices to understand where the weather patterns, what is the right moment to bring the herds to market, so that they maximize the opportunities that they have as well. The world around us, the world that didn't start with the TRS-80 and the tape cassette drive, right? Their first experience of digital technology is a mobile device, right? So how do you target that? How do you deliver solutions to handheld devices that are the most numerous personal computer, and now often the most powerful personal computer any individual on the planet is going to have.
How's the pandemic sped up your initiatives? How has that changed how you guys operate? Has it? It seems like it's changed everything for everybody, but I'm really curious, what has that meant to you guys?
Yeah, I mean, we have this perfect storm of COVID and climate crisis, economic uncertainty, racial injustice, and it means that nonprofits are needed now more than ever. And it also means that the traditional ways of fundraising have been completely upended. If you've ever been to a gala or raised a paddle at a nonprofit event, or participated in, say, the London Marathon, that's run by a nonprofit. The March of Dimes, trying to do some of these things now and engaging with constituents, engaging even with some of the beneficiaries, delivering services in for small health and human services organizations that are working, say, in mental health or drug addiction, interacting with individuals on the street. How do you do that in a safe way now with COVID? Everything moved virtual, seemingly overnight. And think back now to the underinvestment that nonprofits have chronically had around digital, and how digital isn't always included as donors think about how they give to nonprofits. Now there's that shared responsibility, and what organizations like Microsoft have to lean in and invest more in digital solutions to make it easier for nonprofits to have access to turnkey solutions. And that's where I think we have this intersection between private sector tech companies, government actors, civil society, nonprofit, academia, all coming together so that we have better options to help organizations quickly pivot and try and recover lost revenue streams. Some of the data that is coming out now is pretty scary. There's some new reports. So first of all, nonprofit, it is the third largest sector across the world. In the US, it employs over 20 million people. There's over $11 billion in IT spend by nonprofits in North America. About over 5 billion of that is in ERP and CRM solutions. And COVID hit, fundraising went down dramatically. There's new research saying over 1 million people in the US employed by nonprofit have lost their jobs, and so far it's estimated about 7% of nonprofits in the US have had to close permanently.
Wow.
There's a big impact, right? And it's kind of feast or famine. So where we have an opportunity as Microsoft then is, how do we take the philanthropic DNA we have as a company, the scale at which we can operate, and really hyper focus it on the areas of greatest need, which is what led us then to how do we invest, how do we draw that line between a CRM system and impact, right? How can we create a modern fundraising and constituent management solution that nonprofits can use so that they can engage constituents in this virtual world and have much more personalized experience with individuals digitally, where they used to have that experience in person.
That literally might have been the smoothest segue I ever heard.
Like that?
Yeah, I really do. That was absolutely amazing. So Brent, might as well tee it up, man. Yeah,
I figured you'd call me on it.
Oh my God, that was so perfect. It was beautiful.
Let me get rid of this. There we go. So you got some news.
Tell us.
Yeah, we got some news. So this all. So let me just say the news and not bury the lead. So yesterday, we published general availability a new product called D365 Fundraising and Engagement. And it is built on Dynamics 365 Sales Enterprise. We did this with an organization, Mission CRM, based in Canada. They were one of the first ISV partners that worked together with TSI to adopt some of the architecture work that we were doing around the common data model. What we did is we acquired the IP that they've been investing in over the past couple of years, and then made that Microsoft first-party IP. And so Microsoft now has a first-party product focused, tailor-made for the nonprofit sector, starting with fundraising and constituent management. So squarely in that CRM space, squarely around fundraising. What are the different fundraising scenarios you have to think about now in a virtual world? What are the different types of giving that happen? Individual donations, micro donations, recurring donations, gifts in kind, high wealth donors, bequests, things like that. How do they all then tick and tie back into how you design your programs and deliver services to beneficiaries and tell that impact story back to the donors? And so, again, this is where we wanted to start with this, because this is where this is what completely collapsed in March when everything shut down. This is all built on work that we've been doing, Microsoft have been doing over the past few years, and Paul, where you and I first met and started talking about this. And in the early days of Microsoft's engagement in the sector, a good friend of mine and kind of a mammoth in the sector, Dan Lamont over at Threshold World, told me, Microsoft is like the new pit bull in the dog park. All the other dogs are going to freeze and think, are you friendly? And so we have a reputation to overcome. I get it, but we also wanted to do this the right way. This industry, more than any other, is built on trust. And so we started by thinking about how do we create a common architecture that would encourage interoperability, that would encourage innovation by other tech sector partners, so that we could all lean in together and create advanced digital technology and make this technology available at a more affordable price for nonprofit organizations. We didn't want to be, that warlock alone, huddled in a cave, surrounded by jack-o'-lanterns, double toil and troubling a brew of our own concoction. We needed to do this together with input from the nonprofit organizations that we work with. We built a really hyper smart, really dedicated team of data architects and enterprise architects from some of the largest nonprofits on the planet, from some of the biggest private philanthropies, from institutional donors, and also from small nonprofits to help advise us on creating a common data model. And this common data model is a set of entities and attributes and relationships that describe some of the key scenarios and key capabilities in the nonprofit sector. Awesome, right? And that's a Microsoft strategy across our 9 priority industries. Is we've got these common data models, and we recently acquired ADRM and brought in a bunch of other industry data models. It's a big push for how Microsoft is using the common data model and common data service to more directly address specific industry needs. What we've done basically is declare nonprofit is one of those 9 priority industries. As much as I love getting on stage and talking about ERDs and entity relationship diagrams, that is a hard sell if you're a donor relations officer or a CFO in a nonprofit. And working with our partners margins are tight in the nonprofit space. Implementation times take longer. So we knew we needed to go farther in the nonprofit space and take a step forward and create then a first-party Microsoft product. And so that's what we did today. And in doing that, we align this standard to industry standards like the International Aid Transparency Initiative, IATI. We align it to the Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs. We build then a solution on top of it that addresses some of the most common nonprofit capabilities and scenario areas. Because nonprofit is made up of so many different industry types, a child sponsorship organization operates very differently from a conservation organization, say, but all of them fundraise, all of them measure impact, all of them deliver services. And so what can Microsoft invest there that takes some of the R&D out of the equation for partners so that partners can then innovate on top of that solution into some of the white space and get much more targeted solutions. That's enabled us to create incredible partnerships. And I was looking at some of the data before this call. In the last 30 days, we've engaged over 6,200 partners, Microsoft partners that have worked with nonprofit organizations. Over 200 of those are BizApps partners. 20 of those are launch partners for this fundraising and engagement solution. Some of these are traditional Microsoft partners that like the Avanads, the Whitfleys, EY, KPMGs, and others that you would expect. There are some unlikely partnerships with organizations like Blackbaud that have really leaned in and created integrated solutions with RENXT into O365 and building into Teams platform. Unit 4, who's adopted the common data model and incorporated that into business world. And if you're paying attention next week, you'll see Microsoft and Oracle NetSuite on stage together talking about the common data model and how we're going to partner on that. We've got startups like Mission CRM and Threshold World that are coming in specifically because of this work that we're doing. And frankly, we've got some partners that are now working with us that are traditionally associated with other platforms like Classy and Soapbox Engage, PicNet, Now It Matters, that are really leaning into the work that we're doing. And I like to believe it's because Microsoft are trying to do this in a way, like if you ever hear me talk on stage, you'll hear me say interoperability about 60 times. Like this is all about open data. It's all about transparency. It's all about interoperability. I believe we have a responsibility as a tech partner to not compete at that architecture layer, to not compete at that data layer. The data should be interoperable. We should offer customers the choice, those nonprofit customers, the choice to pick the platform that works for them. And the data should work together so that they can tell that impact story. They can be more efficient in their operations, more effective in their missions. Let's compete all day long in the apps, but let's cooperate on that data layer.
Wow, nice.
Well, I literally had this last question, but you literally just answered the whole thing, right? It was interoperability is, to me. I've been dealing with and working with nonprofits, not a lot less than you, but over the years, probably for a couple of decades, really. And the one thing I've always noticed is the disparity of let's say the siloed versions of data that they had, and in their case, it causes more trouble than even a normal situation because you piss off people who are literally giving you disposable stuff, disposable time, disposable income, You're not giving you something they have to do. So, but the interoperability and the common data model less so. Actually, it's the interoperability of the data model, right? That actually is the key to solving that issue, thus that was my literal last question.
And to really get to the promise of the common data model, you need other platforms adopting it, right? And this is where I think we're in a really, really special position on the Tech for Social Impact team, that we get to work on with organizations that are solving the world's biggest challenge. And so working with Blackbaud, working with Unit 4, working with Oracle NetSuite, like we can drop the competition conversation and start that conversation, because what we're trying to do is help these organizations, change the world.
Amen, brother. It's the
Where can
best way
people go
end
to
it.
learn more about all this stuff?
Microsoft.com, whack nonprofits.
All right.
Short, sweet, to the point. Kind of like that. And you also got to like the t-shirt.
Yep.
Good stuff.
And congrats on everything you guys are doing, which is phenomenal.
Yeah, thank you so
Absolutely.
much. It is a labor of love. I'm clearly passionate about it and have an equally passionate team behind me.
The numbers
I
are
know.
staggering. The scale that you guys are operating at is it's
I
pretty
know.
unbelievable.
You can't even wrap your head around it. It's just like, okay,
Yeah,
sort
I
of-
mean,
okay.
Yeah, well, we should be a model for other organizations. I'm a big believer in what we've been able to do to create this sustainable business engine inside Microsoft. Let's talk to some of the other organizations that are out there about what worked for us, what lessons did we have, and let's have that be a goal too.
All right, Eric. So the last thing I'm going to say before we wrap is this. Then we're counting on you to do that.
I'm in.
the olive branch is
yeah.
extended. It was
Right.
a virtual olive branch being extended to all
right.
the other vendors.
Yeah.
I like that.
And you know what? I will go you one further, right? Because often, us starting that conversation, it's back to that, Microsoft's the new pit bull in the dog park, right? Where we will see the most movement is if you are a nonprofit listening to this conversation, go and talk to your tech partner and ask your tech partner to partner with other tech partners. If it comes from the clients themselves, if it comes from the nonprofits, that's what we listen to most, right? That's what will drive the fastest movement on our side. We reach out all the time, and we're natural competitors. But if we're doing this together with those mission-based organizations, we will move faster to help you.
Thank you.
Great note to end on, man. Thanks a lot for joining us. I enjoyed even having a Seahawks fan on. This is
I know. I know. I get to watch the Giants play the Eagles tonight, so that should be a sad game either way. Even if we win, it'll be sad. Right. So
Well, maybe it'll be another time.
there it is.
I'm a Giants fan, so it's the first time for us.
Hey, well, we appreciate it, and we definitely want you to come back too.
Yeah, you bet. Happy to do it.
Count on it.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Thank you,
Take
sir.
care.
Yeah, cheers.
And I guess it's time for me to say I'm Brent Leary.
I'm Paul Greenberg.
We are the CRM Players. We will be back. Technical glitches be damned. We'll be back.
That's right.
We'll be talking sports tomorrow, though. I hope it'll be a good conversation for you, actually.
I've already given up on the season, so it will be fine. Other than that, though, I will see everyone tomorrow.
Later.
Bye.
And here's the pause for the cause.
Oh, yes.
All right. I hope that.